Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So yesterday we had started talking about some bivariate functions because finally we want to reach to copula. So we had defined what is meant by a two-place function, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so today we'll see few more properties of two-place functions and then we will try to connect it to copula. Okay. I will start with the same example that we discussed yesterday. I think we discussed it partially. Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. The screen is visible.
Okay. Okay. So let me start with the example where we stopped yesterday. I think we did not finish it. I'm not 100% sure. hxy is 2x minus 1, 2y minus 1. So this is a bivariate function. Okay. So we want to check whether this is 2 increasing and whether it is increasing in each argument. Okay. So to check whether this is 2 increasing, we need to compute h volume of any arbitrary rectangle which is formed by x1, x2, y1, y2 such that x1 is less than or equal to x2 and y1 is less than or equal to y2. So this would be h x2 y2 minus h x1 y2 minus h x2 y1 plus h x1 y1. Okay, this is our definition of definition of h volume. I have not written anything else, and that I can write this as 2 times x2 minus 1, 2 times y2 minus 1. I am just substituting value of h x2 y2 minus 2 x1 minus 1, 2 y2 minus 1. I am substituting x1 y2 minus 2 x2 minus 1, 2 y1 minus 1, okay, plus 2x1 minus 1, 2y1 minus 1, okay. So from the first two terms I can take 2y2 minus 1 common and I'll be left with 2x2 minus 1 minus 2x1 plus 1 minus, from the next two terms I can take 2y1 minus 1 common, so I'll be left with 2x2 minus 1. I'm taking minus sign common, so this plus would become minus, so minus 2x1 plus 1. Okay, so I have okay, let me see, I think someone has entered. Okay, so what I have I have 2y2 minus 1 from here, then I have x2 minus x1, 2 is here, minus 2y1 minus 1 and again 2 is common and x2 minus x1. Okay, so far? This is equal to, I will take x2 minus x1 common, so I am left with 2y2 minus 1 minus 2y1 plus 1. So I basically have 4 times x2 minus x1, y2 minus y1. Okay. So what does it mean? What I know is x1 is less than or equal to x2, y1 is less than or equal to y2. So this would always be greater than or equal to 0. Correct? So VHB, that is H volume of any rectangle, is greater than or equal to 0. Therefore, we can say that this function is 2 increasing. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now we have to check whether this function is increasing in each of the arguments. Okay. So this is 2 increasing, yes, that we did. Is it increasing in individual arguments? Individual argument means if I fix y and if I take x1 less than or equal to x2, can I say that hx1 is less than or equal to hx1y is less than or equal to hx2y? That is what I want to check. So fix y and take arbitrary x1, x2 such that x1 is less than or equal to x2. Then we want to check if h x1y is less than or equal to h x2y. Correct? This is what we have to check. How do you check monotoneness of a function in general? How do you check monotoneness of a function? What did you do in calculus when you wanted to check whether a function is increasing or decreasing? Univariate function.
Ma'am, if x1 is lesser than x2, then f of x1 should be lesser than f of x2 in that case.
That is.
So we check the monotonicity for increasing and similarly opposite for decreasing.
No, but how do you check that? That's my question. That is definition of increasing.
Ma'am, by using derivative and equating it to 0 and then
equating it to 0? By equating it to 0, you will get extremum
with the
value.
second order derivative.
No. Wait. If you equate the derivative, first derivative to 0, you will get either maximum.
And the derivative h.
Sorry? By equating the derivative to 0, you will get whether it is maxima or minima. I don't want maxima minima. I just want to check. Then what would you do? I am not interested in obtaining maxima minima. I am just interested in checking whether the function is increasing or decreasing. Basically whether it is monotone. Then what should I do? Yes. Is my question clear?
By observing the graph.
But I have a complicated function. I can't draw its graph right now.
If the first order derivative is greater than 0 for all points, then it is increasing function.
Correct. If your first order derivative is positive for all points, then you can say that the function is increasing in that range. So the range in which first order derivative is positive continuously, you will say then it is increasing in that range. If the first order derivative is negative, then you will say it is decreasing. I hope you have used that in calculus. I mean, ideally you should have used it 100 times. Have you used it or not?
Yes, ma'am, yeah.
Okay. So don't forget. If you have used, don't forget. So let me check. Now see, I have anyway fixed y. So if I have fixed y, this anyway becomes a univariate function because now this is function of x only. So I will check derivative with respect to x. So dhxy with respect to x, if I check, what would be the derivative? What is my function? My function is 2x minus 1 into 2y minus 1. So what would be the derivative of this? 2y minus 1 is anyway free from x. So 2y minus 1 stays as it is. And derivative of 2x minus 1 would be 2. So this is the derivative. So can this always be positive or can this be negative, or is it sometimes positive, sometimes negative? So 2y minus 1 would be positive if and only if 2y is greater than or equal to 1. That is, y is greater than or equal to half. Therefore, the function is increasing in x. The function is increasing in x if y is greater than or equal to half, and if I take y less than half, then y less than half would mean 2y less than 1. So this would mean 2y minus 1 is less than 0. So the function is decreasing in x if y is less than half. Correct? So even though the original function is 2 place increasing, this function is not increasing in individual arguments. It is increasing in x only if y is greater than or equal to half. For this remaining region, y less than half, it is decreasing in x. Is it okay? Hence, the function is 2 place increasing, but it is not increasing in the individual arguments. Are you getting what I am trying to emphasize here?
Yes.
Okay. Similarly, in fact, you can try with differentiating with respect to y, you will get similar results. So it is not even increasing in y. It is increasing in y only if x is greater than or equal to half, and it is decreasing in y if x is less than half. And I think yesterday we saw another example. So basically from both these examples, what we have proved is a 2 place increasing function and a function increasing in individual argument. These are not equivalent. Okay, you can have one but you need not have the other. These are not equivalent. Okay, if a function is 2 place increasing, it does not necessarily mean that it is increasing in individual argument. Similarly, if a function is increasing in the individual argument, it does not necessarily mean that the function is 2 place increasing. Okay so far? Now we have to introduce a few more results with which we can establish this equivalence. Means with some additional conditions we can guarantee that a 2 place increasing function becomes increasing in individual arguments. So for that we need to state and prove one result. So let me first state that lemma. Okay, so let S1, S2 be non-empty subsets of R bar, non-empty subsets of R bar. Further, let H be a 2 increasing function. Let H be a 2 increasing function with domain S1 cross S2. Let X1, X2 be in S1 and Y1, Y2 be in S2 with our usual condition, that is X1 is less than or equal to X2 and Y1 is less than or equal to Y2. Then the function H t y2 minus h t y1 is non-decreasing on S1 and h x2t minus h x1t is non-decreasing on S2. Let me try to explain what I've written here. Okay, so what all I have? I have S1 and S2 as two subsets of R bar. H is some two increasing function, okay, whose domain is S1 cross S2. Domain is S1 cross S2 means first argument of H comes from S1, second argument of H comes from S2. Okay, and okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. What we are doing now is we are defining a new function. So let me define f of t as h t y2 minus h t y1, where t is in S1. So remember, this new thing is a function of t. It is not function of y1, y2, x1, x2. x1, x2, y1, y2 are fixed numbers. They are not changing. And we also have a condition that x1 is less than equal to x2, y1 is less than equal to y2. So this new function f is a function of t, where t can vary over S1. And we are saying that this function is non-decreasing on S1. Non-decreasing on S1 means what? So what the claim of the lemma is, if we have t1 less than or equal to t2 with t1, t2 both in S1, then f of t1 is less than or equal to f of t2. This is the claim of this lemma. Is the claim clear?
Yes, ma'am.
As I said, today I am on hotspot, so please respond. Otherwise, I might have lost connection and I would be teaching myself. Okay, I don't want to do that. Okay, so I have to check if this is true. So what I'll do is simple thing. I'll consider ft2 minus ft1. What is ft2? ft2 means I have to substitute t2 in this equation. You can see my arrow, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm writing ft2. So ft2 would be h t2y2 minus h t2y1. Okay, in place of t I have to write t2, and ft1 would be h t1y2 minus h t1y1. So this becomes h t2 y2 minus h t2 y1 minus h t1 y2 plus h t1 y1. So what is this? Does this expression look familiar? Does this expression look familiar? What is it?
H volume.
This is again H volume of some rectangle which is formed by T1, T2 cross Y1, Y2. Sorry. Correct? This is H volume of some rectangle which is formed by T1, T2 cross Y1, Y2. And we already know it is given that H is a 2 increasing function. Since H is a 2 increasing function, H volume of any rectangle would be non-negative, and therefore Ft1 is less than or equal to Ft2. Okay. So we have proved that this function Hty2 minus Hty1 is non-decreasing in S1. Okay, second part is exactly similar. Second part you have to take say some gt. Gt would be h x2t minus h x1t, and you have to prove that it is non-decreasing on S2. So this part is homework. I am not going to do that. Okay. Now we have one condition, one lemma. We are going to introduce one more term, grounded function, and then by using this lemma and the grounded function we will establish that at least under some conditions 2 increasingness becomes equivalent to monotoneness in individual arguments. Okay. So how do I define grounded function? So suppose again we have same notations. So S1, S2 are subsets of R bar, and let A1, A2 be the smallest elements of S1 and S2 respectively. A1, A2 be the smallest elements of S1, S2 respectively. Okay. We say that a function h from S1 cross S2 to R is grounded. So when do we say that the function is grounded? If A1, A2 are smallest element of S1, S2. So A1y is equal to A2, and both these are equal to 0 for all x in S1 and y in S2. What does it mean? So S1, S2 are any two subsets of extended real line, and let A1 and A2 be the smallest elements of S1 and S2. Okay. Then we will say that the function is grounded if A1y becomes 0 and xA2 also becomes 0. Have we seen some other function? Have we come across some other function which is always grounded? I mean, of course, we did not use the word grounded function, but have you seen any other function which has such property that if you take minimum value of one argument, then irrespective of whatever is the value of other argument, the function becomes 0?
Joint CDF.
Correct. If you consider any joint CDF, say f x1, x2 up to xp, let's say, then you know that if you put any one of the xi is equal to minus infinity, then value of this is always 0. Okay. If xi equal to minus infinity for some I. If you put any one of them at the smallest value, then value of the CDF becomes automatically 0. So every multivariate CDF, bivariate or even trifold, every multivariate CDF is an example of grounded function. Is it okay? By the way, in this entire copula thing, I am restricting myself to bivariate cases, but all these results are generalizable to multivariate. But since we want to have just an introduction, I am talking only about bivariate. Okay. Now we are going to have one more lemma. So let S1, S2 be non-empty subsets of R bar. Let S1, S2 be non-empty subsets of R bar, and let H be a grounded 2 increasing function. Now it is not just 2 increasing, it is grounded 2 increasing function. Got it? H is a grounded 2 increasing function with domain same, S1 cross S2. With domain S1 cross S2. Now the lemma says if this is the case, then H is non-decreasing in each argument. Is it okay? So what I am saying, S1, S2 are again any two subsets of extended real line, and now H is a grounded 2 increasing function. So we have earlier seen that if we take arbitrary 2 increasing function, it need not be non-decreasing in individual arguments. But now we are claiming that if we have a grounded 2 increasing function, means under the additional condition of being grounded, non-decreasingness becomes 2 increasingness becomes equivalent to non-decreasingness in individual argument. And to prove this, we will use the earlier lemma. In fact, that's why we introduced the earlier lemma, and of course the definition of groundedness. So let A1, A2 be the smallest elements of S1, S2. S1 and S2 respectively. Then by the definition of groundedness, HA1Y is 0 and HXA2 is also 0 for every A1 in S1 and A2 in S2. Okay. Sorry. I have made a mistake. Can you point out? A1 is fixed. There is no for every A1. A1 and A2 are smallest elements. So I should say for every X in S1 and for every Y in S2. Okay so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now we have to prove that H is non-decreasing in individual arguments. So what we have to prove?
Ma'am, hello ma'am.
Yes.
Can you please scroll up?
Okay.
I'll get to write the statement.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, done ma'am.
Okay. So what we have to prove? We have to prove that H is non-decreasing in individual arguments. So let me write down what we have to prove. So if x1 is less than or equal to x2, then we have to prove that H x1y is less than or equal to H x2y for every y in S2. This is one thing that we have to prove. And similarly, we have to prove that if y1 is less than or equal to y2, then H x y1 is less than or equal to h x y2 for every x in S1. Okay. Now we will go to earlier lemma. From earlier lemma, what I have, let me go to the statement of earlier lemma. So this says that HTY2 minus HTY1 is non-decreasing on S1. Similarly, HX2T minus HX1T is non-decreasing on S2. So let me take the first statement. So from the earlier lemma, HTY2 minus HTY1 is non-decreasing on S1. Okay, from the earlier lemma, HTY2 minus HTY1 is non-decreasing on S1, which means that if x1 is less than or equal to x2, then HX1Y2 minus HX1Y1 is less than or equal to HX2Y2 minus HX2Y1. Are you getting what I am doing? I am substituting x1 here and getting the LHS, and I am substituting x2 here to get the RHS. Because this entire function is supposed to be non-decreasing. So if x1 is less than or equal to x2, this happens. Okay. Now put, and this is true for every y1, y2, such that y1 is less than y2. So put y1 equal to a2 and y2 equal to just y. Okay. Put y1 equal to a2 and y2 equal to just y. Is it allowed? Yes, this is allowed because a2 is the smallest element of S2. So any arbitrary y if we take, that is going to be larger than or equal to a2. And that's the condition we need. We want y2 to be larger than or equal to y1. Okay. So I will get HX1y minus HX1a2 is less than or equal to HX2y minus HX2a2. Okay. So what do I have? I know that the function is grounded, so this becomes 0 and this also becomes 0. So I have HX1y less than or equal to HX2y, and this is exactly what I wanted to prove, that the function is what do we call, non-decreasing in x, the individual argument. Okay. Okay so far?
Yes, ma'am.
So we have proved that if groundedness is added, then the two increasing function is increasing in individual arguments. Of course, I have proved only for x. So your homework is to prove for y. To prove for increasingness or non-decreasingness on S2. Okay, that is homework. Now we are going to define one more small term, and again it is similar to what we used to do in multivariate CDF. So we have a function h from S1 cross S2 to R, and we will say that this h has margins, okay, margins f and g given by fx is equal to h x b2 for every x in S1 and gy is h b1 y for every y in S2, where b1 and b2 are the largest elements of S1 and S2. Are the largest elements of S1 and S2 respectively. Okay, b1 and b2 are the largest elements of S1 and S2 respectively. So fx is a function of x, so f becomes a function from S1 to R and g becomes similarly a function from S2 to R. Are you seeing equivalence of this definition to something else? Have you seen something similar earlier in statistics? Hello. Can you hear me?
Marginal CDF.
Correct. Marginal CDF. When I want to get marginal CDF, that's what we do. We take the second argument to the upper limit. Okay. So for example, from joint PDF, if you wanted to get marginal PDF, you integrate over the other variables. So this is exactly like that, and we saw in the beginning of yesterday's lecture that copula is supposed to be a function which connects joint CDF to marginal CDFs. So this connects via such a mechanism. Okay. So let me take one example of this. So let h be a function with domain -1 1 cross 0 infinity. Okay, given by the functional form is also given h x y is equal to x plus 1 e raised to y minus 1 divided by x plus 2 e raised to y minus 1. Okay, first we have to check whether h is grounded. So h, to check whether h is grounded. So grounded means h minus 1 y should be 0, correct? Y minus 1 because minus 1 is the smallest element here. So if I put x equal to -1, then I'll get -1 plus 1, so 0. So this is actually 0, and then h x 0 because 0 is the smallest element of S2. So if I put e raised to 0 in the numerator, then I'll get 0, correct? So the function h is grounded, and now we can define margins. So fx would actually be hx infinity. So what is hx infinity? I have to substitute y equal to infinity. I can't directly substitute because then I'll have infinity upon infinity. So we have to make sure that we get proper limit. So we'll divide by e raised to y in the numerator as well as denominator. So if I do that, what do I get? X plus 1, 1 minus e raised to minus y. Okay, I'm dividing by e raised to y. Then x e raised to minus y plus 2 minus e raised to minus y. Okay, and of course I will put limit y going to infinity. So what do I get now? E raised to minus infinity is 0. So this becomes x plus 1 divided by 2. So this is one of the margins of this h. Okay, and what is the other margin? Other margin we will get by letting x. My upper limit for x is 1. It is not infinity. So I'll have to substitute 1. So limit x going to 1, x plus 1 e raised to y minus 1 divided by x plus 2 e raised to y minus 1. So it's pretty simple actually. I have to just substitute 1. So I'll have 2 e raised to y minus 1 divided by 2 e raised to y. So I simply have 1 minus e raised to minus y. What is this? 1 minus e raised to minus y is CDF of what?
Standard exponential.
Standard exponential. And what about x plus 1 by 2? Is it CDF of something which is familiar to you?
Uniform.
Uniform over which range?
Minus 1 to 1.
Minus 1 to 1, correct. So basically this function, this hxy, is a joint distribution of standard exponential with uniform minus 1 to 1. Okay. And they are not independent. They are dependent here, right? Had they been independent, our CDFs would have simply been products of the marginals. But they are not product. So you have got one joint distribution where one marginal is uniform over minus 1 to 1 and another marginal is standard exponential. Okay. So today let me stop here. We will continue our discussion on tomorrow. In fact, we will formally define what is copula. So far we have not defined copula. So tomorrow we will define copula and we will see a couple of properties of copula. And in the Saturday's lecture we will try to talk about circular or directional statistics, and hopefully we will finish syllabus this week so that you have enough time to study for your exams. Okay. So let me stop here. Thank you.